Can you tell us who you are, when you were born, and where you're from?
Okay, my name is Bruce Saunders. I was born in the little town of Meaford, not far from here. I was born in May the 10th, 1948, and we've lived within a mile and a half of this location my entire life.
Okay. And what county were you a junior farmer member of?
I was a member of Grey County, and Grey County at that time had at least 5 clubs, and so I was a member of the Rockland Club.
And what years were you a junior farmer?
I would have been a junior farmer, that would have been, would have been a junior farmer from about 1966 to 1977.
Okay. How did you first get involved in junior farmers?
My involvement was probably because of my cousin, Sam Lemon. He kept harping at me and actually calling, do you want to go to this, do you want to go to that? So eventually I broke down and started to go to some of the events.
What was your first event?
First event probably would have been a summer games. Yep. For the county.
Okay, and where was that held?
At that time that would have been held in Markdale.
Okay. So you got involved locally then a lot?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was limited from 66 to 1970 because I was at school, university, and there was no club at the university at that time. And so you'd be home on a weekend, you might attend an event, but there was no leadership involvement at that time. But when I got out of university in 1970, then I became involved in the local club, then graduated from local club to county, and then to provincial. And the rest is history.
All right. And what were some of those things you were involved in the local level in Rockland?
We would do the odd bake sale type thing. We'd be involved in the odd car wash. We got involved, I think it was the Rockland Club that actually led the county's involvement in the Owen Sound Winter Carnival. And we had a pancake breakfast. We actually bought some barbecue grills or flat tables or flat tops that we barbecued or grilled the pancakes on. That was fun. A cold dead of winter, we actually had a van that was my van, and we put these ovens right in the van and cooked out of that. It was a lot of fun. And it was a big carnival in Old Sound at that time.
Were there many community projects or community involvement events that Rockland Junior Farmers did when you were a member?
Nowadays you probably would call them that. We didn't necessarily think of it that way. So I would think that we were always involved with the Agricultural Society, helping with them. We had a square dance set that would go to various functions. Some good, when we were younger and fitter, it was a good time.
And then you mentioned you went on to the county level.
Yeah, so I did through the chairs, if you will, at the local, then through the executive and chairs at the county level. And at that level, the amazing thing I saw in junior farmers, and probably the highlight for me in the whole thing, is that because of where we live, Grey County, there's no educational opportunities past high school, so the kids have to go away to school. And so we would have 15, 16, 17-year-olds who would be the executive of these clubs. They would be running the events, and they'd blow the doors off of anybody as to their organizational and skills and involvement. I was very proud of them. And you see them as they then grew up and moved on to other endeavors, all very successful. It was nice.
So once you went off university, you didn't come back to Root County?
No, I did. I came back to the farm, but the majority of the other kids who might take a nursing or whatever, the opportunities up here weren't that great, so most of them stay away.
And then how did you get into the provincial level then?
We would attend some provincial events, whether winter games, summer games, and And I think I was bitten by the bug of being involved, probably a few years before that, and had the opportunity with my parents' blessing to take on those endeavors. The provincial director at the time, Ray Robertson was, then Doug Lemon, and Doug was only there 1 or 2 years, and then the position came open, and we had discussions, Ron Shaw, Sam Lemon and I went forward. So.
And where was your first meeting held?
Oh, heaven's sakes. I wouldn't have a clue.
Who was president at the time when you first became provincial director?
The Belouzes were just Claire, I think. Either Don or Claire, but I think it was just Claire would have been president about that time.
And how did you feel suddenly you're at this different level with junior farmers from all across the province?
Right at home. There's very few people who don't feel at ease with that crew, that group, and most of the people there at that level had already gone through a fair amount of involvement, and therefore there was all of us had the same desires, same beliefs. It was very easy to fit in.
And how were you able to contribute as a provincial director to the board?
I would think that the involvement is always, if you're thoughtful, if you can develop policy, then that type of thing will always aid an organization. One of the unique things, which I've always remembered since, is junior farmers had the board of directors and an executive, and I just think they still do. In fact, I know they still do. One of the risks of an executive is that the executive becomes a we and the board of directors becomes a they. And we actually faced that. The executive was the we and the board was a they, and those words were used. And I've carried that forward the rest of my life. I don't believe that executives are a good thing, especially decision-making executives. You risk alienating a body by technically not really involving them, or after the fact involving them. It can lead to a problem. So when the we all migrated out, I tried to make sure we never were the we in the future.
So were you participating on any committees on the board?
Yeah, I can't remember what ones, but
Okay.
yeah, you took your turn at whatever responsibilities were given you.
And then you progressed on to the executive then?
Yes, yeah. So on the executive, I think 2 years, and then through the chair, vice chair, past president. So that would have taken about 5 years on the executive in total.
And for the election for vice president, was there others that were bidding against you?
Man, you do want to test a person's memory. I can't recall. I know there was a chap from Bruce County who I thought probably would be the next vice, or the next person to get on the executive, because it's one per zone or region. And during, anyways, a job position came up that required, and he took it, and as a result he had to leave the organization. And so in our zone, which is 7, it was Eureka, it was me. So to get onto the executive, there was no contest. As to being vice, I can't recall.
But your peers were strongly behind you and believed in you.
I hope so. I hope so. I think so. But that's, maybe somebody else would have a different view.
And what type of duties does one have as a vice president during your time?
The traditional vice presidents, you take the chair's or the president's role if the president is unavailable. And so, plus you likely have the senior committee to chair. So that's always an interesting and challenge.
Did you have to run the provincial conference or organize it?
Well, no, and one of your questions later on is about the changes. At that particular time, the executive or the board of directors would say, we want to have a provincial conference, and the staff would go and arrange it. So, as you well know, that is one huge change from what you guys are experiencing today. So our involvement, we didn't even have to line up judges or venues or anything. It was just, that'd be a good idea to have. Make it happen.
What was the year that you became president?
Became president in the spring of '76. That one I do remember.
And do you remember that provincial conference?
Do I remember that conference? Not the topic that we had at the conference, no.
And who was the secretary-treasurer with you at that time?
Well, in my year as vice, Carm Hamilton was secretary-treasurer. But as the venue came up to the annual meeting, etc., Carm indicated he was retiring from secretary-treasurer, and he was, I think Victoria County is where he went. So Ken Knox became the secretary-treasurer. So Ken and I got to know each other very well. We both tried to grow into our new positions, and it was, you sort of as vice president think, oh, why me? But I enjoyed that. It was a good challenge.
Can you talk a bit about Carm and what he did for the organization? Maybe a few funny stories about him.
Carm was the face of the organization from the individual's level. And the first recollection I had of Carm Hamilton was, here's this young person, not 15 or 16, but young person going to a conference, and Mr. Hamilton knew me by name. Now, he cheated, which he told me later, because as he shook the hand of this person, he looked at the name tag of the person coming up, and then shook your hand and called you by name. But, talk about making somebody feel, whoa, this guy's good. And besides that, he also had a great memory. He would remember the name after that too. And a total commitment to the youth, to the people. And just, he falls under the class of just one great man. And I will always respect him as an individual.
Were there any times you guys played pranks on him?
Not that I would admit to.
All right. Now Ken was, he'd already spent some time in the extension office, but this was a new position for him.
Yes.
How did he fit into it? And you were his first test subject.
Yeah, we had no problems. I think so. I fit from a organizational point of view. He fit right in. He didn't necessarily have the talents from a name recognition and that personality that Carm had. Because we are all our own unique individuals, and so he did the job well, but in his own way.
And then you had some other people on your executive that are pretty interesting people as well.
Yeah, the vice chair was Bill Emmett, and Bill has, he and I have sort of gone through life in the same direction, if you will. So our paths have crossed many times, and in the last few years they were intertwined. So great individual. Yeah, there were a number of stellar people, and people that you will always remember going forward. Yeah.
Who else was on your executive that you remember?
Well, there's Bart Johnson, Jim Phelan out of Huron County. Who else was up there on there? Liz Facey may have been on from Oxford. I'm thinking, over in Simcoe County. Name's gone. Brian. Dairy farmer too. can't think of it.
Who was the past president with you?
Past president would have been Don Mote. Very good friend.
Was he a good mentor?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was, very thoughtful. And so, yeah, I think we're all influenced by people we work with and people we see work. And this organization did so many things for me that obviously the mentors weren't bad.
And as president, you traveled a lot, I'm guessing.
As president, I traveled within the province a lot. During my career, I had a couple, one exchange to Alberta, but not related to the presidency, and I had, we were down into Indiana to the conference down there once, but again, when I was on the executive. So as president, it was pretty well just going to a lot of the county annual meetings within the province.
Did you do a lot of speaking at these events?
If they asked me to. Yeah, I think that in most cases the participants want to hear what the chair thinks, what the president thinks, because you're seen as being the voice, the definitely the head, but you're what the outsiders see as the face of the organization, and so people want to hear what you think. Yeah, and so one of the results was, one of the developments was, we started to do more focus on the community involvement, the community betterment, and we actually created a new committee at that time to lead in that direction. As in all new committees, I think it took a year or two for it to find what it actually had to do, but Marvin Waldroff was on the executive, and we gave him that chairmanship. Starvin' Marvin was his name, by the way. Or sorry, that was his nickname. Yeah.
So what other interesting things happened during your presidency and your vice presidency? What highlights were there for you and for junior farmers?
To be honest, I can't think of any major issues. I can think of things that happened before I became involved as president and vice, but I was on the executive when we got kicked out of the Royal York, which wasn't, we would spend, my wife and I and all the rest of the executives spent the entire evening walking the halls, trying to keep the kids in the rooms.
What event was that at?
That would have been Sing Swing. Kids had a good time. Anyways, we were compared to second only to the Grey Cup parties. And the difference for us was at Grey Cup they keep the parties in the room, whereas our guys moved around from room to room. Yeah, fun.
What do you feel was the most significant thing that happened during your time on the board?
From a again, I have a tough time identifying a specific program or event. I guess by saying none of those serious events happened, we were successful to a degree, but we didn't seem to have anything go wrong or any eureka great successes.
Okay. What were the changes that occurred in junior farmers during your involvement that are important to know about?
I think this whole issue of having events and having individuals at those events and how they then affect the rest of the guests in a hotel or whatever, getting a hand on how you handle that and where you put your venues so that you don't disturb other parties that happen to be in the same location at the same time. And so therefore maybe you move to smaller venues that are where your organization is principally the only guests in the venue as one way of one of the changes that actually moved forward, I think. That really is about the only major accomplishment that I can see, because at the time it was an organization that was running very smoothly, a lot of involvement from OMAFRA, and so it was in a lot of cases it seemed to be don't rock the boat type thing, and so there weren't a lot of changes being proposed.
You touched on OMAFRA, so we'll lead into that for the next question. How was the relationship and how was the interaction between the provincial government and junior farmers?
Well, at the time, the government was putting all the staff were salaried OMAFRA employees, and so that was a significant financial commitment. So those employees they were in effect, for instance, Doug Wagner, he was the leg man, so if there was going to be a conference, Doug arranged everything, from the venue to the meals to the judges to whatever was going to be required. And so that involvement was significant. That a few years later, that as your audience will well know, that ended. And I never did buy the argument. I know the person who presented the argument to me had to sell it, but the argument that was given to me was, well, the people in the city don't have OMAFRA or the government putting money into an organization they can be involved in. All they have is the scouts and the guides, and that's it. Yeah, fair enough, but when I look around the rural communities, and it still is, but definitely years ago, the leaders tended to be people who had developed through either 4-H or 4-H and junior farmers, and the skills that were honed there were then utilized within the agricultural community generally. So I viewed it as a very good investment by OMAFRA, and in the scheme of things, fairly cheap. But obviously, somebody wanted to pull the rug.
Now you had
and that's a disgrace. It was a loss, but I view it as a disgrace. It was wrong, and I've had that argument with some ministers. So be it.
Now in Toronto, you had the junior farmer office, correct?
Yes, Bay Street actually.
Bay Street.
Yeah.
Okay. At the local level, how did the ministry affect junior farmers?
To a much lesser degree, but there would be within the OMAFRA office one of the deputies, if you will, one of the lower rankers, would have responsibility for attending the county meetings, for instance, and just as a voice, as a moderator, if you will, and provide some advice, provide some guidance, usually not to the tune or the point of organizing events for the local or the county, but more as general guidance.
And how did that end up working for the clubs?
At the club level, I don't think we noticed it when it was pulled back. Not that I saw. So that individual, I think OMAFRA gained a fair amount of visibility, and probably more so at the 4-H level with their involvement. Because all of a sudden these 12, 15-year-olds knew what OMAFRA was, knew individuals that were involved in OMAFRA, knew where the office was. Well, that's changed, if there's even an office. So,
is there an office in Grey County?
Not through OMAFRA, but it's the Grey County Ag Services. Ray Robertson, who you'll be talking to, is the head of that. And probably we haven't missed O'Mackle leaving because they virtually picked up the slack.
Was there any changes socially or financially or demographically in Ontario that were happening at the same time?
None that I recognize, apart from perhaps we were getting into at that stage maybe some budgetary restraints within the province. Don't know. That may have been one of the reasons.
What was the membership levels during your time?
Dramatically different than current. We had around between 72 and 7,400 members across the province.
And how many members were in Grey County?
I think Grey County would have been in that 250 to 260. We had about 5 very active clubs.
Who were all the clubs?
We had Rockland, we had a club in Owen Sound, we had a club in Drumore, we had a club in Ayton, and we had a club in Durham.
Going back to a bit of your presidency, what do you feel was your most significant contribution to Junior Farmers Association of Ontario?
Again, I can't put my finger on anything of significance. If started the year in a good term, ended the year in a good term, and didn't screw up in between, success.
Was there anyone you met in Junior Farmers that's become a significant part of your life?
Now, depending on how you want to go with significant. In my particular case, if it's matrimonial, which a lot of people might view that question as leading you to, the answer is no. Actually, I had the good fortune of meeting my wife at university. And so when I got really involved in Junior Farmers, I better not have found a significant other, because I already had one.
And she became part of Junior Farmers with you?
Yeah, attended the same functions. There was one sort of interesting story. Because she was a teacher, and so she didn't necessarily attend, couldn't go exactly for when I would go. So this one particular afternoon, she was to arrive, so we would have been down there Friday, then Saturday. So she must have arrived late Friday afternoon, because I would have gone in on Thursday probably. And anyways, so I'm chairing this meeting, and here's this good-looking, young, dark-haired lady, short hair, walking across the road back the room. Oh, good-looking lady. It was my wife. She had a wig on, but she was, back of the room. Anyways, she was good-looking. Told her that story too.
She's trying to fool you, is she?
I don't know what she was trying to do. Don't know. She looked good.
Other friends that you've made for life through Junior Farmers you would like to talk about?
I'll give you examples. The highlight for me when I would go to, when I was on the milk committee, I'd go to the annual meeting, and the highlight was the fact that there'd be about 6 or 7 other junior farmers of my era, like either in the executive or on the board of directors, who would be at the annual meeting. So once a year you could get together and share notes, talk to each other. And so obviously the people you meet and the friends that they're forever, whether it's a Bart Johnson, a Don Mode, a Bill Emmett, a Doug Peart, Jim Phelan, Richard Fraser. He was on the executive too. The names are coming to me slowly. He was on the executive, and some great people.
Were there other people that were that we haven't talked about that were a significant part of junior farmers?
Uh, Definitely the likes of a Jan Horner, who has stayed involved and stayed as a key person. Doug Wagner, I've already mentioned him, and to see where his career has gone now, and highly successful. Probably from Joyce Wiley, a lady who she lived junior farmers, and it was hard not to like Joyce. She was great. She was a lot of fun. But then the likes of former presidents, Murray Pearson, Don Mode, Glenn Rood, who just predated me. Yeah, all those people. And then I see the odd person at various functions. Meredith Brophy. Saw her about a year ago. Well, less than that. So nice to catch up. And the reunions that you guys have started to organize are good.
Can you talk about some of your craziest experiences as a junior farmer? The stuff that wouldn't make you...
Yeah, well, some of them I won't talk about. This will be unique. When I was on the executive, I may even been vice chair or vice president at the time. Grenada, the country of Grenada, came to OMAF and asked if the Junior Farm Organization would be interested in sponsoring some rabbits and goats to populate their island for meat. Well, as Ken Knox at the time said, we really don't have a rabbit and goat specialist, but our vice president has the same education as what a rabbit and goat specialist would have, so he can go. So I spent about 10 days in Grenada being toured around to find out whether it was possible to put some rabbits, goats on the island. The island there, if you have an animal, a cow, you would take it up in the mountains and hide it. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't have one in the morning. It would be all chopped up and gone, and too bad. So definitely meat protein was needed. So as I say, I went down to that. I actually visited a couple rabbit farms in Ontario to get some idea of what we might be talking about here, become the specialist. And it was amazing to see the difference in the economies, if you will. The chap who toured me around, would have been an ag rep here, he spent an entire morning getting permission, actually getting hold of 2 bags of feed. Just the paperwork he had to go through just to get something as minor as 2 bags of feed. Anyways, at the end of the day, came back, wrote my report, said that goats were possible, but don't ever put rabbits down there because there was no predators. And they would have just run wild. So that was my recommendation. Don't know where it went after that. The Isle of Spice. It was nice. It was interesting. Never been back. We'll do it 11 times.
Now, you talked about going on exchange to Alberta. What year was that?
That must have been about either summer of 70 or summer of 71, because I wasn't married yet, so that would be in about that ballpark.
And did you apply for that exchange, or did someone approach you?
Don't know the sequence. Had to be a provincial selection, so I had to have applied for it, I assume.
And how long was that for?
That would have been a 2-week exchange. Spent a week in the short grass country down just north of the U.S. border, and then spent a week outside Edmonton.
And was there a host organization similar to Junior Farmers out there?
Yes, there was. Yeah. So host farms, 2 different farms. I don't know what the organization per se was that was involved, but definitely. And then they actually sent Was there 2 people came back with us? At least 2.
And you'd also talked about you had gone down to Indiana.
Yeah, that was one of those weekend conferences. So my wife goes with me, and a couple from Bruce County, and we drive down. We came back 4 days later saying y'all. So my wife had my mother phone in to say that she had laryngitis and therefore she couldn't teach. And then she comes back talking y'all. So I knew how that went over. I don't know.
And what was that conference about?
It would have been similar to our policy or like our annual meeting, and very well organized. It was the FFA, Future Farmers, so very well organized. They do a very good job on the leadership side. I've always been impressed by the people that come out of that organization. Very good.
Talking about events, what provincial events were there in junior farmers at your time?
Definitely the summer games. We would have had Swing Fest or the annual meeting, and we would have had we had winter games too. The reason I'm very confident about that is in '77, so that Region 7 was actually hosting the winter games, and and that was the first week of April. And about Monday there was a storm started here, and none of the Bruce County kids could get there. I managed to get there by driving on the wrong side of this county road out to Chatsworth. It was a unique storm. So I know there's winter games at that time. So virtually the sports and culture and the annual meeting.
And did you ever go to leadership camp?
Yeah, I went to leadership camp as an individual in 1970. So just out of school, went to leadership camp. Found it very worthwhile. Again, we talk about Carm Hamilton, but I think he and definitely his staff set the atmosphere of what you're doing at that camp, and probably it was the first time I had been where you sort of start to learn what your character is. You get pigeonholed as to what your character is, and I found that very interesting. So, and again, the people that you actually get to work with.
How many people were at that camp?
I believe there were 5 we were tribes at that time. I believe there were 5 tribes, and probably, I would say around 100, 120. Well, that's a guess, but that sounds decent.
And where was that held?
At that time, that was in Barclay. The first time I went was in Geneva Park, and Bark Lake came along in the interim because I was also at camp for when I was the president, and that was at Bark Lake.
So you were part of the staff at that point then?
Yeah. The weak part of the staff at that time. The weak part of the staff.
And what time of the year and how long was leadership camp at your time?
It had to be in August. It was definitely in the summertime. There was because it was a full week, and it wasn't wintertime, so it had to be the summer holidays.
And what sort of activities happened during leadership camp?
The whole thing was about teamwork, and it was about working, trying to understand yourself, see yourself, see where your leadership styles were. So a combination of games, challenges. At the meal, it was if you for instance, elbows on the table, and you had to stand up and do something stupid, or maybe not stupid, different, but just fond memories.
Going back to other events, what were you most active in? What was your involvement other than chairing meetings?
Well, as far as participating, probably mostly in the sports side. Culture didn't necessarily fall my way, either singing or acting or square dancing, although we did have a set and we did participate. I do believe the square dancing, way back when, was actually at the Summer Games. That was a warm event at times. So, yeah, that would have been held at Guelph.
How did Junior Farmers change you as a person?
Anything I have done since Junior Farmers, I owe to Junior Farmers. I took a public speaking course at the university and never noticed any dramatic improvement. But any speaking abilities I have, any leadership abilities I have, any personal interactions I have, maybe partly on the personal interactions, partly juniors and probably partly university, but any attributes I owe or have that have been used within other organizations are totally Junior Farmers, and very thankful for all of that.
How have you seen Junior Farmers change other people?
I think it's just it's the confidence that you end up with with your involvement, and confidence and the ability to live within yourself and be happy with yourself is what I would say you see generally across the junior farmer spectrum. There's no desire to be anything else but yourself. You're comfortable with the shell you're in and the skin you're in. So, and that makes life pretty damn easy.
That's good to hear. What do you consider your legacy as president? What do you want to be remembered as?
I think through my entire life, I want to be remembered as a conscientious and person who's fair and even-tempered. I think within junior farmers, I don't think I did anything standoutish, but at the same time, I think generally there was no division created while I was in chair or in the executive. It was a case of trying to work together harmoniously for the betterment of all.
How feisty and passionate were board meetings?
I didn't see feisty. Passionate, yes, because it was, what the organization, it was all about the organization. It wasn't about the individuals, it was about the organization. And so I didn't see the feisty, in-your-face type attitudes. It was all very harmonious and, working for the betterment.
How much did membership cost?
I asked my wife that, and we can't recall, but it was modest. It was if it was $25, I'd be surprised. I knew that was over 35 years ago. So.
And you got a membership card and all that.
When got a membership card. Yep, very proud of it. Don't know where they are now, but very proud of it.
What have you done with yourself since leaving Junior Farmers?
I have had awesome opportunities since leaving Junior Farmers. In all honesty, for the first number of years when you're no longer of age to be a junior farmer, I actually spent some time searching for something that could replace junior farmers. And I didn't find it. I tried Federation, a great organization, but it didn't ring my bell. Then I became involved in the Milk Committee, and that did it. And probably not so much, the people are about the same as would be in the Federation, but it was the topic. it's what I was living, and you were involved in your own future, if you will. And that probably is why I continued to moved on to the national board, or the provincial board, sorry, Dairy Farmers of Ontario.
And you became chair.
After a number of years, I had the opportunity to be chair for 4 years, yeah. Very proud of that. Excellent opportunity. Yeah.
Now, are you still on the board?
No. No, I after 24 years, I thought maybe it was time to let somebody else have a shot at running that organization, or representing the local producers. And the local producers were great. I never ever had a phone call reaming me out. And for 24 years, we must have been doing something right, as far as the local people were concerned. So I take that as an indication that in that organization I represent my people very well.
So before you left Junior Farmers, you had started farming on your own then?
As soon as I came back from university, I actually joined the family farm, and that was in '70. And in '72 we formed a corporation, father, brother, and myself, and that continued, and we are in the process of bringing in two of my nephews as partners, or not partners. They will run the organization going forward. So yeah, it's, you know, I had the post Junior Farmers. I had the ability to do two loves of my life, if you will. Three with my wife, but I had the opportunity to farm, which I like, and I had the opportunity to be involved in dairy politics, which was fun. So I'm blessed. I've done a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things, opportunities galore. So if you get the sense that I'm pleased with my life, I am.
If you could say something to today's members, what would you tell them?
I admire their commitment. I admire the fact that these people are willing to, knowing the workload that they're going to get involved in, are willing to go forward and put their name forward, doing the work within the counties, but the ones at the provincial level are willing to make the commitment to to actually run events, plan them, run them. I'm not so sure I'd have had that commitment, and I just admire the individuals who are doing it now. And I will say this, that the training they're getting, because of that total self-involvement, will stand them well for the rest of their life, because they won't be asked to do anything in the future that they haven't already done, and done better. So I tip my hat to this generation. I'm impressed.
Is there anything we haven't touched on or that we missed that you'd like to talk about?
Nothing that I had on my list. As I said, everything I've been, everything I've done, I've owed to Junior Farmers, and if there's a legacy, I'll let somebody else say what the legacy is. It's been a good ride.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.